Okay, we're on. So, welcome, Marcie. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
No, I'm good, thank you. So, what events in your life led up to you becoming a stripper? Briefly.
Well, yeah. Well, I was a stripper for a few months. What led up to it? Well, I'll tell you, Harry. When I started off, that's not at all where I ever expected to be. I was like this good little girl, and I did, okay in school, good family, very into sports and dance and all of that. And so I was very opinionated and very strong and very confident. So I had everything set up to be as successful as I wanted to be. And I really thought that I could take over the world, or not, maybe not take over, but that I could take on the world.
I feel you felt ambitious. And you felt, yeah.
I did. You know what? I had two parents. I had a brother, older brother and older sister. And my when I was 10, my parents got divorced and my father left. And that was shitty because he just decided he didn't want to be a parent. And so he took off, leaving my mom with 3 kids to raise. But my mother was spectacular. And I was also very, very close with my older brother, who was 5 years older. And so life was still really good. I felt very loved and very protected and very supported. My whole life changed when I was 17 and my older brother got sick and he died. And it was unexpected to me. He had been ill, but I think because I was the youngest, everyone sort of didn't tell me how sick he was. I was literally writing an English exam at school when my vice principal walked in and sort of picked up my papers, and said, "Follow me."
Talk about timing. Could they not wait till the end of the exam? I don't know.
Well, well, it was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And but that moment, I would say that the minute before I heard Billy died was the last minute I would feel safe for a really, really, really long time, because it made me feel like, oh my God, anything bad can happen. At that age, at 17, you're supposed to feel like nothing bad's going to happen to you, right? Like that's when a lot of kids get into trouble, because you feel like you're invincible.
Yeah, your brother was 22 at the time.
He was 21.
21 at the time, and especially 21, you're just made out of like rubber and magic. You can survive like people, I don't know, you think 21s, you're full of testosterone, and that's crazy age.
Yeah, and he was an athlete, and it was not on my radar. And so I started to feel very vulnerable, but also I felt he was a really good person. He was just a really good person. And I felt that he was better than me. I felt that it should have been me instead of him.
Oh, so you felt like survivor's guilt.
I guess I felt, and my mother I had a sister who at the time I wasn't very close with. Now we're close. At the time I wasn't, but I thought if it had been me, my mother would still have a daughter and a son. And so I really felt like if I was going to be here instead of him, then I couldn't just be average. I had to be special. And I didn't, at that time, I started to not feel so special. I didn't feel smart. I didn't feel like I was particularly smart or funny or interesting. And so I thought, well, what's the one thing that I can control? The one thing, because my life felt so out of control. Yeah. What's the one thing I can control?
Well, that's the thing. When you're 17, like your hormones, you're growing. The world is a confusing, crazy place. And to have such a train crash of a tragedy like that come into your life, like
absolutely.
That's tough.
So what happened was I felt the one thing I could control was my body. And so I started to become obsessed with my weight, which is a sort of a common reaction to trauma.
Yeah, especially among teenage girls.
That's exactly. And it's funny because I used to, at that point, when my brother got sick, I was 16, 17, I started to think about sort of body image stuff, but I was always very active. I was always very fit. So like it wasn't an issue, but I started to think about it. And I remember going to him and saying, should I lose weight? And he said, are you kidding? Like, you're perfect. You don't need to. So it was kind of an interesting thing that I immediately started dieting. But here's the crazy part, Harry. So I saw myself getting really obsessed with my weight. And then that summer, so he died, it was May 28th. So it was the end of, it was end of May. I went away to camp so in July, I went to work at a camp. He was supposed to be working there with me. He worked there the summer before. Yeah. And I worked as a dance instructor. Okay. And he had been there the summer before, so he knew a lot of people. So it was a very supportive atmosphere. And I was physical because I was dancing. And so I started to feel better about myself. And I came back that summer thinking, okay, you know what? I have this under control. I'm not going to be obsessed about it. I'm going to be okay. And the end of August, so just a few months after my brother died, I went to my family doctor just for a regular physical. And I said to him, you know what, don't tell me what I weigh, because I knew I was fit, but I was afraid if I heard a number I didn't like, I was still vulnerable enough that it might set me off in a bad direction. And he said, don't be ridiculous. I'm going to tell you what you weigh. He told me that medically speaking, I was fine, but society was very thin. And if I wanted to fit into society, I had to lose 10 pounds.
What? Your doctor said that to you?
My doctor, he said he said that if I swear to God, he said if he were me,
what an asshole.
He wouldn't, horrible asshole. He said if he were me, he wouldn't be seen in a bathing suit.
And he said that to a 17-year-old girl. What was he like? Was he not fat? No,
he was very, he was very average. This is the thing that I found out afterwards, is that, I had friends who were heavier than me who that were his patients, and he didn't have an issue with them. I think he was trying to mold me into what he thought would be perfect, because I was fit. I was always very fit and athletic, and my family was fit. So there was no issue there. And I had told him that I was obsessing. So
or he just kind of hates himself, wasn't happy with his own life and the situation he was in. And, he sees this young, healthy person. And I don't know, some people just have a lot of anger because they're not happy with their own lives. And
it could be
like that. Yeah.
So but then he had me come in every week, write down everything I ate. And he would scrutinize everything.
For 10 pounds?
Yeah.
10 pounds overweight, and he's making you do this.
But I wasn't 10 pounds overweight. That's the thing. I wasn't overweight at all.
You weren't even overweight.
No, I wasn't overweight at all. I'd never been overweight. And he even said I wasn't overweight. He just wanted me to look a certain way. So I ended up losing the 10 pounds, and then another 10 pounds, and then another 10 pounds. And because at the last 10 were all of it was really pretty much a fuck you to him. Although really I was the one getting screwed, right? Because it was not healthy. And he was like, okay, you can stop now. And I was like, the rebel in me was like, oh yeah, wait. Yeah. And so that sort of set off this, for years I battled an eating disorder. And what it does too is my self-esteem was gone. And that set me up for to be very vulnerable to what life was going to throw at me after that, because it didn't get easier. So right after that, my mother had started dating somebody a few years earlier. She had just gotten married. My brother died, and my stepfather, who was a caterer, he told us, turns out he wasn't a caterer, and he'd gone to, apparently, he told us he was going to do this big cooking job, but we got a call from the police that he'd been arrested for 47 counts of bank robbery.
Holy shit. I'm sorry, we'll get back to this story one second, but I like to add some statistics and facts. The National Eating Disorder.org did this study in 2007 across like hundreds of thousands of people, the UK, the US, Europe, and they reckon that 5.2% of girls from all these countries are anorexic.
There's more. It's yeah, and that's reported. Yeah. I think it's much higher, and it's not just anorexia. There's so many different kinds of eating disorders, and it's much higher. Because I work with people with body image issues, and there are kids who are young as 5 years old who are struggling in eating disorder clinics. So it's much worse than people realize.
Yeah.
Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental health issue.
Uh-huh.
People don't realize. Yep.
Wow. That's insane.
Yep.
I'm sorry, back to this guy's a bank robber. Your mum
Yes.
is dating a bank robber.
So my mom
Jesus.
married a bank robber. And yeah, and so that we found that out just a few months after my brother died. So he'd lied to us, like, yeah, because he would take, I was so into food that he would literally take me to the markets and be like, this is where I get my meat and this is where I get my vegetables. But it was all a lie. And he would tell me in detail what he was cooking, but it was all a lie. And yeah, what he was doing was we were living in Montreal, Quebec, and he would get up every second week. He would tell us he was cooking this big church breakfast and he would be gone all day. But he would actually be driving from Montreal to, he'd be driving from Montreal to Toronto, robbing a bank and driving back.
Jesus Christ. What year was this?
Yeah.
You mind me asking?
This was 88.
88. Oh shit. You look younger than you are, I must say.
Thanks. So this is all because you asked how did I end up on the stage there? So wait, we're just getting started. There's more. Okay.
How long was your mum with this guy for? And how did you find out?
I'm thinking it was about 2 years. I'm trying my memory. I think it was about 2 years. They were together. They weren't married that long. She had it annulled. But we found out because he rented his cars. He never, looking back, there were a few things that we go, oh, okay, that doesn't make sense, you know? Like he never cooked.
Huh?
Well, there are a few things, but he used to rent cars and change them all the time. And what had happened was, actually, my mother got a call, I think, from the rental company, and they said that, so I think the police had contacted them, but he was in the middle of a robbery. He had just robbed a bank and he was on his way out, and I think a limo driver was outside, saw what was happening and took him down. And that's how he got caught.
Oh shit. Can we say his name?
Yeah, it's Eddie Berger, and they called him the Satchel Bandit because he used to carry a little bag like a satchel.
Satchel Bandit in Canada.
Yeah, I think there may have been two because I've googled it. Although I still have an article that talks about it. They said the article, the title is something like "Bored Businessman Robs 47 Banks" or something, for the thrill of it. That's what they said.
So he was a wealthy guy before he started.
No, he wasn't. That's the thing. He really wasn't. And they said he would have made more money had he been a caterer, because unless you're going into the vaults, unless you're bank robbery, if you're not
in the tails.
Yeah. So he wasn't getting it. I think that day he made. I think they said he walked out with like $1,700 or something.
Jesus Christ, that's not.
Oh, and no, I'll tell you this. Sorry.
No, you just.
But okay. So the funny thing with the whole catering connection is what we found out after was that he had been living in the States and then he moved back. And what we realized was the reason why he came back to Canada was because he had done the same thing in the States and had gone to jail there. So then once you do that, they don't want you there anymore. So he had to come back to Canada. But what he was doing in jail, his job in prison was a cook. So he was cooking.
That's
so there is
yeah.
Yeah. So should I could
you know,
go ahead?
Yeah. Wait, these portions are a bit big, right? You're not cooking for 40 people. Oh shit! What happened to him? How long a sentence did he get?
So he was sentenced to 21 years, but you only serve a third in Canada. So he got out after, I guess, 7. But I've tried to find him. I have no idea. I have no idea where he is.
You're not worried he's going to try to contact your mom again?
Oh God, my mom passed away years ago, so he wouldn't. But no, I actually wrote him a letter once, like early on, to say but he never responded. Yeah, I have no idea. No, I'm very curious, but I have no idea. I don't even know if he's alive. I have no idea.
Oh damn, because I have this story. I don't want to say exactly who it is, but basically someone I know that I'm quite close with, their best friend in like the 90s went away for murdering their husband and she's just come out of prison, but she was best friends with this person I know, like one of my family members. So we're kind of worried she's just come out of prison now that he's going to try to contact my
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, murder's a big deal.
Yeah, that's not light. That's not light. So when did you say he's out?
He's been out for a while.
Oh, he's
I
been
have
out
just
for a
no
while.
idea. Oh
And
yeah, he would have been
hasn't
out in the
tried
90s.
contacting your mom.
No, no. Well, no, but my mom died in 98.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
But
He's
yeah,
probably not.
thanks.
Yeah.
No.
How do we move on from here?
Okay, so you want to okay, there's more. You ready?
Yeah, I'm prepared. Got a little bit of wine here.
Okay.
The story's been good so far. Let's go. I'm ready.
All right. So then, so just a few months after he was arrested, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so that was it was a lot. I mean, I think that was a very hard 2 years of my. It was just one thing after another. Like I never had time to breathe in between these major things happening. But she recovered from that. So, she had some surgery and she was okay. I had just gotten into a theater school and I was there for a bit, but I just felt trapped. I felt like I didn't know how much time I had left because, after I saw my brother die, it was like, I don't know how long I have. I felt like I didn't want to be, I wanted to start living my life. I actually I left school and I was miserable. Like I was just dealing with my eating disorder. I would sleep all day. Like I was a mess. And then decided I didn't want to keep living that way. So I decided I needed to move on, but I needed to do it out of the city. So I moved to a different city on my own. I was 19.
You moved from Montreal. You
Yeah.
lived in Montreal.
Yeah.
Where'd you
And I moved to Toronto. That was like an easy move. It was like a 6-hour train ride away kind of thing. So my mother felt like she could still visit me all the time, which she did because I was still the baby. And I think my mother had read once that when you lose a child, you tend to smother your other ones. And she really didn't want to do that. So she wanted to be supportive of me doing whatever I needed to do. But we were very close. So she did visit me all the time, which was great. Yeah.
You lose
yeah.
one,
no, it was great.
Worried about the other. I read, do you know what the Victoria Cross is? The award they used to give out in the Second World War, and they still give it out now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the highest prestigious award you can gain for valor and bravery in the battlefield.
Right.
Basically, I read this study of all the Victoria Cross winners. They're trying to find patterns. And what they found is that the majority of Victoria Cross winners were the oldest child in a family where either one or both of the parents were missing. So they kind of had this instinct ingrained in them for decades and years before they this kind of protective instinct and this selfishness,
Wow, isn't that interesting? Huh.
Fascinating. So I thought it kind of relates. But so
family dynamic. Yeah.
So what was it like? You're not I presume this place was smaller than Montreal, right? It's a smaller place?
Toronto's still a big city. Yeah, I think Montreal and Toronto. Yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah. So I was still pretty lost, and I sort of came back and forth a bit, and then ended up. So then I ended up meeting who would be my future husband, my future ex-husband.
That's where it breaks from, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Shout out, Drake.
That is where Drake is.
Shout out, Drake, if you're listening. I'm sorry, continue.
That's funny. So I ended up meeting my future husband. We got married pretty quickly, even though I never really, I wasn't one of those girls who was trying to get married at all, and certainly not at 24 when I got married. But we got married.
24. That's kind of. I'm 25 now. It's actually my birthday today.
Oh, no way! Happy birthday!
Thank you.
That's
very
so
much.
cool.
But
It's too young.
I could be married now, I'll tell you.
No, listen, I have a 20-year-old and a 23-year-old son, 2 sons, and I couldn't, and they're mature, but I couldn't imagine them being married now. I wouldn't. No, it's crazy. It was crazy.
Like they're mature, but they're not that mature. No.
Well, it's not even that. It's just you have too much life you need more life before you sort of partner up. I mean, you can partner up, but that kind of commitment, I don't know. I for me, again, I wasn't ready. I think I was looking for normalcy. I think he
Yeah.
represented
And
normal, and
probably some stability in your life as well after everything that
yeah,
happened.
exactly. That's what I was hoping for. Didn't happen. So we ended up moving across the country for a job that he was offered.
Okay, this guy wasn't a bank robber then. He had a more legitimate job.
Yeah. But we moved, and it was far from family, which was tough, but I liked sort of a new start. I liked that I wasn't, Marcie with the dead brother and the bank robbing stepfather,
Yeah,
like I could
yeah, I know
sort
what
of
you're
start.
saying. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And things were okay. And then I had a couple of losses. I got pregnant and miscarried, and got pregnant again and miscarried, and then got
Oh,
pregnant
geez.
again. Yeah, I got pregnant again. And I remember I would be on the phone with my mom like 3 times a day. And she'd tell me about her pregnancy cravings during my pregnancy, because she was just so excited, and she really believed that this one was going to be okay. And then everything was going well. And I was about, I don't remember how I was, it was about, so I was a few months pregnant, and I got a call from my sister in Montreal telling me to come home because our mother was dying. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I spoke to her all the time. Her cancer had come back, and she didn't want me to know how severe it was, because she was
The
worried about my
stress on the
pregnancy.
baby. Yeah, when you're really
Yeah,
stressed with that heavily
right.
pregnant. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Exactly. So I flew back, and she died the next day.
Oh, Jesus.
And yeah, so I was not prepared again for that. And I never imagined to be a mother without my mother. And
How old were
so
you
I
at
was
the
20,
point?
28.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So and again, see, I couldn't, when my brother died, it was too much for me to handle. So it was the eating disorder, which kind of pushed those feelings down. Right. And then with this, I couldn't really deal with it because I was pregnant and I was so worried about the baby. So I couldn't let myself,
Couldn't even let yourself
again,
think.
I couldn't let it sink in.
You had to just shut it out for the
I
time
had to
being.
kind of focus on the baby. And then so he was actually due in November, and he was born in September.
How did you keep it out of your head when you were sleeping at night, though? The thought.
I did it. I mean, it was
Yes.
brutal. I had no parents, right? My father was out of the picture, and I wasn't close with my sister at the time. And
So
no,
young.
it was devastating. And I think I don't know. Honestly, that's all leading to where I ended up.
How was your
So hang
husband
on,
at the time?
there's more. Okay, so at the time
Did he treat you well?
at the time he was. At the time, yeah, he was great. We were a pretty good team at that time. Things are going to take a turn in a few minutes, though. So hang on. Hang on.
Take a
Buckle up,
turn.
Buttercup.
It's already been pretty dramatic. Oh,
No, there's still more to get. This is the thing. This is why I wrote the book, because it's like, how did this happen? Okay, so, and it's funny because I know I sound like it was no big deal. No, it was. I mean, my whole life was crushing, but I've made it out the other side. And so you kind of look back, and I kind of go, when people read my book and I get messages and they say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you went through that much." That's when I kind of go, "Oh, you know what? Like, I guess it was a lot."
yeah, this
When
is
it's
a
your
normal.
life, but
Yeah,
when it's your life, it's all you know, right?
yeah. Like that's what I
So
was gonna say. You sound like the most unlucky person in the world. Like no disrespect, because I don't like putting bad energy out there, but you
yeah,
don't sound
really.
like you're a very lucky person.
Well, I've had some shit happen, but listen, I'm alive, I'm healthy, I've got 2 amazing kids, But wait, there's more.
I'm waiting.
So, so, yeah. So, well, actually, my mother saved my son's life, because before she died, there was negligence in her case. Her doctor had screwed up with her, and so she had said to learn from that, and that if ever we were in a situation where we felt something was wrong, that we need to fight for it, even if our doctors made us feel like we were being crazy or whatever. Fight to be heard. And so just a few months after my mom passed away, I started feeling there was something wrong with the baby. And I was about, it was only about 6 weeks before I was due, but he stopped moving. I knew something was wrong.
Oh no.
Went to the hospital. They told me I was being neurotic. They told me to go home.
Erratic.
Yeah, they
Oh, you said erotic.
neurotic. Like they thought I was being overly like stressed and anxious
Yeah,
and
erratic,
being
erratic.
oversensitive.
Erotic, in the UK, erotic is like overly sexual. I don't think it was that. I think it was erratic.
No, not erotic. I said no. I didn't say no, Harry. I said no. I didn't say erotic. I said neurotic.
Oh, neurotic.
Neurotic with
I'm
an
sorry.
N.
I'm sorry. That's me. I was like, I'm trying to work out in my head. I was like, how's it?
Okay.
Continue.
No, that came later. Okay. So anyway, they sent me home and said, don't come back for a week. If you still feel that there's something wrong in a week, then come back. Well, that night, wrong, go back. So I went back the next day and I said, I'm not leaving until you give me the test that I want. And there was another doctor that came in. I wanted something called a non-stress test, and they wouldn't give me one because I was at a teaching school, and apparently when I got pregnant, I agreed to be part of a study, which I didn't remember, but they gave me this other test that said he was fine. But I just, for some reason, I wanted the non-stress test. I don't know why, but that's what I wanted. So they got me a different doctor, and they did a test, and they said something's wrong. And they said, we don't know what it is, but we need to take him out immediately. And so they did an immediate emergency C-section. And when they took him out, he had lost 75% of his blood. Yeah. They think my placenta had separated. Anyway, we were told, had we waited an hour, we would have lost him. And here we were told not to come back for a week. So
if you know,
my mom
listened to the doctor, then the first doctor, you didn't insist.
Yeah. It would have been over. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Jeez. Do you ever think?
Yeah. So then again,
like,
so here.
Yeah. What happened if I never persisted?
Listen, it's, are you kidding? But that was also traumatic because it wasn't like they took him out and it was like, oh, he's fine. It was touch and go, and so I'm here. I am in the hospital room, and I can hear everyone with their babies, but my baby's in the neonatal ICU, and we don't know if he's going to make it. And that's when I was thinking, what did I do in a past life? Like I can't even. Exactly. It's not even like the birth of my child could be.
How could this?
What did I do? Because it just doesn't make sense. Even like the birth of my child should be a happy occasion, and even this was traumatic.
Yeah.
But luckily, he was amazing, and he got out very quickly.
That's brilliant. What I was going to say,
fantastic now.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, in that moment when you knew you had to persist asking a doctor, sometimes whether it's like professional firefighters or something, they just have this weird instinct. They know they have to do this thing, yet they don't necessarily know why, or there's no justifiable reason for it. But you just have this weird sort of subconscious instinct is telling you this. Did you feel anything like that?
I just knew. Yeah, I just knew that there was nothing. It wasn't like he was a big kicker, and I just knew. And luckily, I got the other doctor that I saw. He was like, I don't know what's going on, but we need to take him out. Then we'll know more. Like I got lucky too. Had I, gotten a different doctor, they may have just refused to treat me. It's hard to say, but thank God everything. I like to think it was my guardian angels that helped me with that.
Yeah, that's crazy. And what's it called? The C-section. Where do they cut? Like how below the belly button, I presume, and around.
Yeah, just above the pubic area, I guess. So they just make a little thing and they just pulled him out. But I'm watching. They're waiting for the epidural to kick in, and I'm watching his heart rate drop. And it's I just wanted them to like just cut me open and take him out. Like I just. It was crazy. Okay, ready for more?
I think so.
Okay, so then he was about a year old and everything was great. And I have to interject, because I have to say something here. when he was about 10 months old, we had to, something came up with my husband at the time. He brought up the idea of opening up our marriage.
What?
And
An open marriage was so he could sleep with whoever he wanted. You could sleep
well,
with
it
whoever
wasn't
you
it
wanted.
wasn't so much an open marriage. He had brought up the idea. Oh God, it's even he suggested that I sleep with one of his friends.
That's fucking weird. Is it the Amish? Who is it? There's some people in America that have like 5 wives and shit. I don't want to drop
Oh,
the Amish in it, but you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, I know, Charlie. Yeah, no, but it wasn't that. It wasn't that. But it was weird, and I wasn't into it. We'd had a great sex life. It wasn't an issue. Not at that point. Hang on, you gotta stick with me. You gotta stick with me. So, but that was not great. I mean, I had just within the year, I had just lost my mother, and I'd had my baby, which was under traumatic circumstances, and I was still dealing with my eating disorder. So the idea of that.
Yeah. No, go on. I was gonna say, like, can you kind of paint the picture where you were? Like, were you in the kitchen? Where were you when he asked you this, and how did it go? Like, out of the blue, driving? Like, how?
No. So, oh God, this is even worse. Okay, we were. Okay, we were out of town. We had gone back to where I'm from, because there was like a memorial thing for my mom.
Okay.
So we were in town for that, and we were in bed, I believe, and kind of going to bed or whatever, and he just kind of brought it up. And it was really bad. Again, it was everything going on. Plus, we were in town for this memorial service for my mom. It wasn't great. I didn't love it. I didn't love the idea. The idea. So that, but I said no, and it was fine. And I think it came up a few times after that. But okay, then.
Is this friend a billionaire? Like how?
Yeah.
Is that even like what's going?
Yeah. I mean, I think like what I realized after was I think he wanted to explore a lot of different things, and sort of felt that if we started with this, it would be kind of a good gateway thing. For some reason, it felt safe for him because it would be something he knew.
He'd probably like get off watching it or something.
What was that?
He would like to watch or something like that.
Well, I think it was. I think what he wanted was to eventually have sex with other people, and he sort of felt like this would be the way to maybe start. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But for now, it's sort of put on the back burner. So then, when my son was about a year old, I got pregnant again, and everything was going fine. I was about 5.5 months pregnant, and I got like bronchitis, and was put on antibiotics, and then I ended up, I was dealing with some pain, and we kept checking the baby. The baby's fine. But my situation got worse, and the doctors were very confused. But I ended up in the hospital for 2 months in the intensive care unit for 17 days on a ventilator with kidney failure and respiratory failure.
17 days.
Yeah. Jeez. I was given a 25% chance of surviving.
What happened?
So
on the bronchitis or something else?
So what? Yeah. Well, no. What happened was, I'll tell you how they figured out what happened. They couldn't figure out what happened. My blood pressure was down to nothing. I was basically dying, and they needed to figure it out. They had one surgery, like an exploratory surgery of my stomach. Didn't tell them anything. They ended up cutting me open, and the doctor said that when they cut me open, I looked like a tiger because my insides were black and orange with bacteria. And I had something called C. diff or Clostridium difficile. And you get that. What's that? Want to look it up? Spell. Okay. Oh God, I have to Clostridium. CLAUSTRIDIUM. Clostridium. And then difficile. DIFFICILE. You got it?
Oh Jesus! I don't know why I googled the images on that.
I don't know what you did either. So, what happens? What happened? No, I never looked at it. I don't know what you mean. What happens is when you take a wide spectrum antibiotic, it kills bad bacteria, but it's not discerning. Like it kills all.
Yeah, all
right,
the healthy bacteria.
exactly. Right. So it let this one bacteria, C. diff, grow. And because I was pregnant, and this is, I don't blame my doctors at all, but because I was pregnant and it was high risk because I'd had such difficult pregnancies before, because I had pain, they just kept checking the baby and just kept thinking it was baby related, and it wasn't baby related. So it just kept growing and growing. So once they figured out what it was, I thought, okay, like I remember being in the recovery room, and a nurse came over to me, and I said, do they know what it is? And she said, yes. And she said, how are you smiling? You must be in so much pain. And I said, yeah, but they know what it is, so they can save us. However,
so you thought, can I just pause you one sec? You know, I like to throw in a few facts. Apparently, there are 100 trillion both healthy and bad bacteria that lives inside the average human's digestive system. That's from Harvard Health. Continue.
Well, okay. So, as we know, with me, there's always like, it's never going to be an easy road. So they knew what it was. So they knew what it was, but they couldn't stop it. It had progressed too far. So my organs started shutting down. And so that's when I had kidney failure, which led to respiratory failure. Oh. And and so, and a few weeks into that, the baby couldn't hold on. So I lost the baby. And I didn't even know, like I was so out of it, and I would wake up and I'd ask about the baby and they'd tell me he died. And then I'd go out again, and then I'd wake up and I'd ask and they'd tell me again. Like it was brutal. And then from there, I ended up going into ICU after that.
This when the baby was 10 months old?
No, he was 10 months old. He was no. My older baby was at home. This is a baby I was pregnant with while I was sick.
I'm sorry.
Right. So no, that's okay. So my older son was 16 months old at this time. And the baby I was pregnant with, I was about 5.5 months pregnant. And so I delivered him, but I didn't know. Like I didn't know until later that I had delivered him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And that was pretty crazy. But then I went into ICU, and from there I kept getting worse too. I got pneumonia, and I got MRSA, which is a superbug that you get in hospitals.
Yeah, no, I've heard of it.
And so it was that's when everyone, and nobody was coming into my room. I was in ICU, but when my husband came in, or the doctors, everyone had to be like double masked and gloved and gowned, and nothing that came in my room could leave it. Like if there was a pen in my room, it would have to be thrown out. Like nothing could leave my room.
What? Because you were that contagious?
It was. Yeah. It's just a brutal. It was just a brutal. But I was like, like when you've got when you're on an intubated, whatever, like you can't talk, right? You can't. So I had it was just a horrible situation. Anyway,
what kept you going through that time? Just thinking of your children. What gave you the strength to keep fighting?
Well, I think it was a few things. I mean, my husband was great at the time. He really was. He would come in every day. He was great. My sister came to visit me from Montreal. I think it was. It's funny because I just posted something about. I found. In one of my chapters of my book, I talk about this, and I talk about a day when I tried to extubate myself, and it's like try to pull my tubes out.
Someone I know, she was a nurse for years. She said sometimes the patients just do that. They rip the tubes out, try to run it, things like that. Well,
you also think you have so many hallucinations when you're in the hospital. So I thought they were all trying to kill me, and it was crazy.
Fucking strong drugs. Nuts. You get juiced up on that morphine. Is what? Have you been on morphine before?
I've been on everything.
One time I was having an operation and I was on morphine, and I was just doing it throughout the day, but I slept, and in this 6 hours it felt like I was the main character of a Hollywood movie for this 2 hour sleep. It was fucking crazy. Yeah.
You got see, that's not fair. You got this great, my hallucinations were that's unfair. I hallucinated that I was attacked and raped at a park, and then I was in the infirmary next to my attacker. Those were my kind of
Well,
hallucinations, or
that's
that the
true.
staff told me that everyone's trying to kill me, so I should try to escape. Like,
You
it was
need,
crazy.
you need to come to the UK, get on some of that good morphine. I don't know what they're giving
I
you
did
there in
not
Canada, but
either.
give you the good
Um,
trips
but yeah,
there.
like I was looking at some of my medical records, and it said in there that that like one of the nurses wrote that I kept trying to leave because I kept saying my baby needs me, my baby needs me, that they had to let me go. So yeah, I he was what was keeping me going. There was a part of me though that thought, well, if I die, I'll see my brother, I'll see my mother, I'll see the baby I lost. And there was something that was kind of like, that's not too bad. But I couldn't imagine leaving my son. I could not imagine him not knowing me and not growing up without me would have been terrible. But I did think I was dying every night. So every night I would make peace with death. Every single night that I was in ICU, this is what I would tell myself. I remember I would think to myself, okay, because I was so worried about my son, right? That
Yeah.
was at home. I thought, okay, if I die, I'll go to heaven. And in heaven, you're supposed to be happy. And I couldn't be happy if he wasn't okay, which means that he'll probably be okay. Like, it was just a weird thing that I had to kind of tell myself, reassuring myself that if I die, he's going to be okay. Like, it was it was awful. I mean, it was awful.
Yeah.
But I beat the
Not,
odds.
not many people in the world, and maybe you're a soldier or you're in a turret, get like shipwrecked, have to kind of face death and come to the realization that, well, you think you're gonna die right now. You know what's wild?
Mhm.
My
What?
mum used to be a nurse, and she's spoken to like 3 or 4 people that they had to resuscitate. So they'd technically been dead for like a minute or two, and they'd come back to
Mm.
life. And I think 2 of them said they just saw this bright white light, and then another one said they were just looking down on themselves in the hospital bed, like there wasn't a ceiling or
Mm.
anything. And yeah, and then they came back. That's fucking crazy,
Well,
right? The
it
white
is
light,
crazy.
heaven,
Well,
who
one thing
knows?
I didn't see that,
Fuck
but
knows.
one thing I've always wondered was, at one point before I was intubated, while I could still talk, the nurse went out to the hallway and said to my husband, "She's calling for you, but she's not calling. She's not using your name." And he said, "Well, what is she saying?" And she said, "She's saying Billy," and that was my brother's name. And so I've always
That's
wondered
freaky shit. You're
if I
going
saw
mad,
him.
Karen.
Yeah,
I swear. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. No, continue. I'm sorry.
but I listen. We know I make it in the end, so it's okay. Um, so so I ended up they couldn't get me off the machine, the ventilator, and then eventually I had to have a tracheostomy. So I had a trach, and
Your voice sounds quite pretty normal considering you
it
have.
is no, I got lucky. Yeah, they said that.
They
I
usually
remember them.
fucks with
Well,
the.
they
You know
they
this.
can.
Yeah, you know the story of 50 Cent. Apparently, when he got shot all those times, 50 Cent, right,
Mm-hmm.
obviously.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The doctor said, he might die. We're gonna have to do a tracheotomy. I haven't said it right, but one of those things. Put the tube in
Yeah,
his throat. And his grandma was like, if you do that, he'll never be able to rap again. So they said no, but luckily he survived. And yeah.
for sure. They told me that they couldn't guarantee that my voice would be the same.
It's just,
But it is. I think it took a little bit, but
yeah, sounds great.
but yeah, no, it was good. So I got out, and I had to learn how to breathe again on my own. And first I went from being a fitness instructor to having to learn how to sit up, and then learn how to walk. And then,
Jeez.
it was tough, but
How long did the recovery take?
didn't take, well, this is the crazy thing. So after all of that, so that happened, I got out of the hospital. It was like, I'm going to say March of 2000. And
Yeah.
then I decided to get pregnant again. And I had my second son in September of 2001. So I didn't give my body that much of
Chance to recover.
a chance to, but I did. And that was great. And he's my second miracle baby. But okay, so here's where we get to the answer to your question. Okay, so now at this point, so I just had my second son, but I just been through this horrific experience again, physically, emotionally, everything, and I'm still dealing with my eating disorder, and still feeling like I'm not good enough and all that stuff. And then my husband brings up opening our marriage again, and it was I can't even remember I can't even remember exactly how I felt at that time. But I remember thinking like, that's so crazy. Like my body's so full. I had scars and like, it was just, and I had just had a baby,
Like
another baby.
after all you'd gone through, and he knew your original answer to the question was no, and he tried again. Like, wait, are you still with him?
No,
Okay, yeah.
but I have to be
You sound
careful.
like
I
a
have to
bit
be
of a
careful.
dickhead then. I'm allowed to say that, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're allowed to have we're amicable. You know, I think he didn't mean to hurt me, wasn't trying to be whatever. Maybe he was young and I don't know, you know. It's fine.
Everything
The
you've
father of
written.
my children.
You said that again.
It was yeah. And again, I didn't have anybody, right? I didn't have family. My sister and I were estranged at the time. And so I didn't have extended family. Like it was just me and
Mm.
him, and he had people. And so at this point, I started feeling I was also feeling very strange. I remember emailing my doctor because we moved back across the country again at this point, and I remember emailing my doctor and saying, I feel
Montreal.
we were living in Toronto.
Oh, Toronto. Okay.
I met him in Toronto, and yeah. And so I thought something like I didn't feel it wasn't postpartum because I wasn't angry, I wasn't stressed, I wasn't depressed. It was almost like the opposite of that. I felt like kind of powerful. I felt I wasn't sleeping very much. I was, but I knew it wasn't okay. Like I knew something wasn't okay. And years later, I had a therapist call it traumatic overload. I had just had so much trauma,
Yeah.
one after the other, that it demolished me. And then I had my partner wanting me to use my body in a different way. And I thought, okay. And I said, okay. And I did. I slept with his friend.
How much can I ask into this?
Okay, ask me. I'm open about it. I just have to be careful that I don't with other people. Like I have to protect other people. But
yeah,
but you could ask me whatever you like.
Did your husband watch?
He was there. Yeah.
He was there.
You can read my book. You can read my book.
Did he participate?
Oh God, this is gonna sound terrible. They took turns. They took their turn. I actually, the way I describe it in the book, the way I describe it is that I felt like a drunken sorority girl getting double teamed by a couple of frat brothers.
Yeah. Were you sober? Were they sober?
I was sober because I wasn't. Yeah, I think we were all sober. Yeah.
Do you enjoy it? Not really.
No, I didn't. But I'll tell you what happened. What happened was he picked a friend that he knew I didn't like because
that's
I think
weird.
Yeah, well, I think it was protection for himself, right? He felt that it wouldn't be a threat to our relationship.
Okay.
But it backfired because what happened was here I wasn't feeling very loved, right? Like I wasn't feeling like very protected by my partner. But here was this guy who thought I was the sun, the moon, the stars, and we ended up becoming friends, and we became friends, and we ended up having sex again.
Okay. How long did you have? How long was it? What was the time frame between the time when it was you, your husband, and him, and then just you and him?
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember.
Roughly 6 months, a year?
No, that it happened. Oh God, no! I'm sure it was probably a couple of weeks. I don't know.
Weeks.
I think for me, because he was showing me so much attention, and I felt like, well, if I can't be loved, at least I can be desired. And so I think I needed to sleep with him again on sort of like on my terms, which just sounds so stupid, but it was this time it was my choice kind of thing. And he made me feel like I was something. And then that for me was the turning point. That's when everything kind of shifted again, because I really started to believe I had two purposes in the world. One was to be the best mother I could be, because I adored my children. I had lost my mother. I almost died. I didn't know how much time I had left. You know, it's you don't, once you have a near death experience like that, like you really do realize that you're vulnerable. And I had lost everyone in my life so young. And by this time too, my father had passed away.
You were definitely more aware of death than the average person, far more.
Right. And it was so important to me that, you know, my kids, that every minute of their life was like amazing, and that they felt loved every second. So that was one part. But then the other part, as far as me, I needed validation somehow. And I wasn't getting it from the people who had given it to me when I was younger, which was my mother, my brother, because I didn't have that. So, and I was getting it from my husband sexually, right? Telling me that, like, putting me out there that way. So I thought, well, then that's what I'm going to be. So I'm going to find my worth as a mom and sexually from other people. And so we ended up, we did the swinging thing for a little while.
What was that like? Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, we kind of got in and got out pretty quickly, but it was interesting. It's,
the first time you went to like a swingers club, you had a meet, what was it like? How was it? How did it all go down?
It's funny because I describe it in my book, because it was so, the first place we went to was so not what I was expecting. We found it online. I expected, you know, what you kind of see, like people dressed in like really sexy things and like the walls covered in leopard, like who knows, like just velvet, like you picked like crazy. It wasn't. It was like
a trailer.
It was like no, not even. It was like it was at a hotel. And it was like in the little conference room of a hotel, and there was like a DJ. Shit. It was like a bad conferencey thing. Like it was bad. Like it was just, and everyone was like kind of very, you know, probably, you know, like people that you pass all the time. Like it was just, no one you would ever expect. Not what I was expecting.
Wealthy people, you think?
No, very just kind of. All kinds, but nobody really. No, we met that after. So
your husband fuck anyone else that night?
Well, what happened was we met a couple who were like, you know, they'd been doing this forever, and they took us under their wing, wing. And she really did like him a lot, and so we actually made plans to meet up another night.
Did you like him? So another guy?
No, I didn't like. I didn't care. It was kind of like, okay, we'll do it, kind of thing. And we went out for dinner. We rented a hotel room, and we were in two separate beds. And I was with the guy, and he was with her. But he couldn't perform. Not my husband. My husband performed, but the other guy couldn't perform. And he said to me, he started to explain to me that it's common that in this lifestyle, because I don't know if he was just. That was what he was saying. Anyway, that, you know, as much as you think you're comfortable watching your wife with someone else, or that they're watching you. So it was a thing for him. That it was a problem for him. So we did nothing, but they did their thing.
Just sat there, had a cup of tea. They did
basically. They did. You know, they did. And it's funny because I don't even remember. Like, it didn't bother me. I was feeling nothing, to be honest. At that point, there was no jealousy with us.
Do you think how you're feeling nothing is? Did you think all your past trauma in your earlier life had kind of numbed you to certain emotions and things?
It could be. I think it was just for sure it could be. I just think that also I was so disappointed with sort of I was gonna say with the way my marriage went, but I think at the time I thought it was a good solution. I remember thinking like swinging was a cool thing because you could be with other people and you're not cheating, you're not lying, you know. But yeah, no, I didn't.
Well, they say it's healthy for the marriage, you know, do some activities, go out, do things together. Quality time, right?
Right. But I just think that I just don't think we were in love, you know. I just don't. I think we were like good friends at that point, but
you ever
I don't know. I don't know.
It's hard to say because at the time you think
I think, you know what,
met him, you needed someone.
I think there were moments. I think we had moments, you know, and we did we raised our kids very well together. We we had fun together. Like we definitely had our moments, but I don't know that we were meant to be. Like we weren't meant to be together. But so it just kind of went. Then we went to like a real swingers club, and that was different. There was the club that we went to that we kind of became regulars at was there was no sex on the premises. Like nothing happened there. It was like a regular club, and you would meet people, and then if you were going to do anything, you took it outside of the club.
What was the name
So
of
we
it?
met.
In case I'm ever in Toronto. No, I'm
It's not there anymore. It's
Yeah.
not there. This is a long time ago.
How long were you at that place for?
Honestly, I feel like we did it for like a summer. Like, but although that's not true, because I do remember going there. I remember it's funny because we would get a babysitter, and I remember it's like when kids, when you're in high school and you wear one thing when you leave the house and then you change kind of thing. Like I remember I'd say goodbye to my kids and I'd be wearing like layers over my little sexy lingerie.
Yeah.
And then take it off and then put it back on when it's so ridiculous.
How many people did you and your husband, how many couples did you hook up with that summer then?
Oh boy. Not that many. I mean, I feel like I actually encountered the issue with the guys not being able to finish on their, like not being able to whatever, a few times. I can't even remember. I think I'm gonna say not that many. Honestly, not that many. I'm gonna say although any is too many, but I'm gonna say we were with 4.
Okay, that's not too bad. That's like
no, I mean there was one kind of group situation. No, but it was yeah. But again, for me, I was also not eating at this time, right? Because I was still dealing with my eating disorder and wasn't going to be naked if I didn't feel. So it was just really fucking me over. And
no
and then
pun intended. Sorry.
Right, yeah, exactly. Or pun intended. But then so now to get to the dancing. So one of the things that we would do is we would go to strip bars together, and what I found that this is what we do. We would go, and we found this one that I really liked. It was fun. It was very rowdy. It was because we've been to a couple that were very kind of serious, and I always found the girls looked really bored or depressed, or I didn't like it. And this one was really fun and wild, and just had a good vibe. But we would go, and you would sit down, and he would tell me, or I would figure out what girl that I thought that he would be attracted to. I would approach her. I would pay her for the dances. They would go off. And then I would sit at the table and by myself and kind of watch the show. And then he would come back. And I liked that because I felt like a boss, you know, like I thought, how powerful, like, what is that? Like, what a bad ass I am that I'm doing that and letting him go. And, you know, and the girls loved me because I wasn't trying to, you know, be gross with them, like
driver trying to grab and grope and whatever.
Exactly. And this was a place too, though, where what they would do is they would pull up women from the crowd onto the stage, and you were supposed to like lift your shirt up, kind of thing. And
what was it like?
So the first time I did that, it was super exciting. Like I was already out of my mind. Like I was so beyond whatever.
Were you drunk?
No, I didn't have a sip of alcohol in years. None through all of it.
You got pierced nipples?
No.
No? Okay. Sorry. I'm not sure how that fitted in, but continue.
No, I've got no piercings. I've got a lot of tattoos, but no piercings. So because again, this was how I felt like I was somebody, you know. I wasn't loved, I wasn't lovable, but this was where I felt okay, I can do this, like I don't know. And so and then it became a thing where we'd go and then they'd bring me up and I'd take off more and more clothes, and it was a bit of a thrill. And then actually it was funny because at one point I remember saying to him, okay, we can't go anymore, because we'd walk in and they'd be like, hi, Marcie. I'm like, okay, you know, you're going too much.
You know what? By your first name. So did you ever get completely naked one time when you walked in on the stage?
Yes, I did. I did. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure I was the only person that had ever, that did not work there that, yeah, no, I did. And I mean, it was so risky too, because this club wasn't really far from where we lived. And who knows, you could have like, it was pretty crazy.
What were you
But
working at? What was your job at the time?
I wasn't working. I was just
Oh,
with my
okay.
kids.
Oh.
My kids were little. They were toddlers.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happened was okay, so because I was still crazy with my body, I had gone to a new gym and I met a trainer there who was like, oh, I can get you to look like a fitness model.
Can I just, sorry to interrupt, but can I just say, do you not find
Sure.
it kind of fucking crazy how like quite a few, like some people in society judge like women like strippers and stuff, yet like it's everyone, you know, men are attracted to women and it's such a normal thing, yet it kind of gets demonized by some people in society, which is fucking crazy, really.
Well, it absolutely is because a lot of the times, and what I found out when I started working at one, is a lot of times the women are in control, right? Like you're giving me your money. Why am I the idiot?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what? How is
She's not
how is that a thing?
self-conscious. She's getting paid, and like, hey, it's
I'm not hurting anybody
it's
for
just
sure. I think that
showing a
the
bit of
whole
her body
sex,
to people. Yeah,
the, our society is fucked up because it's every advertisement you see for any perfume or shoes or anything,
it's
women are being sexualized.
yeah,
And as long as they're
exactly,
sexualized for
exactly.
someone else's profit,
It's not.
if I'm being sexy, so your company can make money, it's okay. But if
Uh-huh,
I'm
uh-huh,
being sexual for me, it's not okay. And it's that,
uh-huh.
yeah, no, I think that the whole sex industry is demonized and it's, listen, it's been around forever. It's
It's
supply
the
and demand,
oldest.
right? If
It's
people didn't want it,
they say it's the oldest job in the world, like one of the oldest
of
jobs in
course.
the Western world. The sex thing, like, yeah, it really is crazy, isn't it? How people demonize in such
Yeah.
a way.
Are some people, it wasn't my situation, but there are some women who, unfortunately, if you don't have like the job experience or you don't have, and you have kids, like it is tough to make money. So this is something that they can do. And yeah, the fact that they're demonized, they're not hurting anyone. There are CEOs working in high profile positions, making a ton of money, who are doing things that hurt other people.
Yeah,
But we're
yeah.
supposed to look up to them because of they wear business suits. Well, screw
And they
that,
get paid a
you
lot.
know?
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Exactly.
You're right.
So I had met this trainer and he told me he could get me to look like a fitness model. And so I was like, that would be awesome. But I had to pay him, right? And I wasn't working and I felt too guilty to go into the family. My husband was working. I didn't want to use his money. I felt guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I need to make my own money, but I need a job that I can do when my kids are asleep. So really,
Uh,
there's not that much. So that's when I decided to work at a strip club. And so it's like I was saying earlier, I would be with my kids and then they'd go to bed. And then I would drive out to a strip club further from my house.
yeah.
And I would work. And then I still never had a sip of alcohol or a drug. And instead I was training. So I had my trainer approved protein shake in my locker. And at midnight I'd have my shake. And then I would get home at 4 and I would have something light to eat and then go to the gym and work out for a couple of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then come home and take a shower and be up when my kids, like I just didn't sleep for days at a time.
That's really
Trying to kind of, it
man.
was,
Living the double life.
it was brutal because I couldn't really compartmentalize the way some people can. I couldn't really be like Marcie by day, Cassidy by night, and just be, because that was my name, Cassidy. So it
Oh,
kind
that
of
was your
all,
dance name. That was your
that
dance
was my
name.
dance name.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
So it would just kind of all come together, and it ends. You can't do it for a long period. Like you just can't. Like I ended up making some very bad choices. I always say, I felt being sort of controlled by
By
my
who?
ex-husband. I felt
Not by your
my
ex-husband.
ex-husband. I felt in a way that and it wasn't an abusive situation. I need to say that. It wasn't, I was never forced into anything like that. It wasn't. It was more of a subtle
Yeah, well,
manipulation,
that's the
I
thing.
feel.
When you're with someone all the time, like you know, they can subtly influence your opinion on things, kind of without
Hmm.
you knowing sometimes when you spend so much time with somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and again, I didn't have somebody else. I mean, I had a couple of good friends who knew what was going on, and I remember one friend saying she didn't judge me, but she was so worried for me, and it was, but there was really nothing. I was just on this track, like and I felt like, okay, so I didn't like the idea of being told who I could sleep with, because when we were swinging, he got to choose who we were with, and
Oh, he picks
I
every
didn't.
time.
Yeah, he would disagree with me with that, but yeah, no. um
Okay.
and so I felt like he didn't care that I was with other people, then I should be able to be with other people whenever I want to be with other people. um because I never wanted it. Like, again, I never want I as sexual as I've been, I've always liked the one-on-one. Like, I like the idea of being comfortable with one person, and then you can try things. But I never was interested in multiple partners. So once we crossed that line, to me, there was just no going back. And so and again, by this time, I felt like a pretty horrible person. And I felt bad about what I was doing. And so what happened with that was, when a man would show me attention,
Mm.
I would go with them. And so
In the
I ended up,
strip club or just anywhere?
no, I left the strip club, and then was just, this would happen. I could be at the coffee shop, and a guy could start talking to me, and then we would exchange numbers, and then we would talk a few times, and then we get together and have sex. Or, I talk about, oh, this is terrible. I talk about how I would take my kids to, one thing I've done for over 20 years now, is on the day that my brother died and my mother died, and the days that and on their birthdays, and on the day that I lost the baby that I was carrying,
Uh-huh.
instead of mourning their death, I do things to celebrate their life. And so I'll
Uh-huh.
do random acts of kindness
Yeah, a lot of
around the city.
that's nice. That's nice.
It's great. However, and I would take my kids with me when they were little. And
Uh-huh.
then one time we were doing that, and we went to the fire station, and brought cookies. And then one of the firefighters
Get
said, "Oh,
jealous,
what's your email
pop
address? Because
off,
I'd like to, so
flex.
we could thank you."
Yeah.
Yeah. So then he ended up emailing me to thank me, and then hit on me. And I had no interest. I couldn't even tell you what he looked like now. Like, I can't even. It was such a the whole. I was so disconnected from my body.
How was his
Um,
nose?
what do you mean?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't even remember. It was married. I'll tell you that much. That's the problem. Um,
Oh shit.
and yeah, and we ended up getting together, and yeah. And that was it was a bad but you know how you talked before about how your mom said that there are people who like lose their pulse, they die for like a minute, and then they come back and they talk about how they hovered over themselves. I had that experience with sex. There were
Uh-huh.
times when I would feel like I was outside of my body
I mean,
and
I don't
watching myself.
I don't like the fact you brought my mum into this part of it. But yeah, I see what you're saying. No, that's weird. You felt
No, I would.
when you were having sex, what did you feel and see?
No, there were times when I felt disconnected, like I wasn't there, that it was somebody else.
Oh,
Um,
so it's like escapism, you
yeah,
think?
I looked at myself in the mirror and could not recognize myself.
When it was
Yeah, it was.
when it was with your husband, it wasn't like that. Was it just with other people? It was like that, or all the time?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and it didn't happen every time. It didn't happen every time, but there were times when I was always playing a role. I was playing the sexy girl or the whatever, but I never felt good about it. Like, I hated myself for it. And so there was times when I would be with somebody, and then I would leave them, and I would binge eat because
Mhm.
I was punishing myself and I wanted to make myself hurt. Or I would have sex with people to prove to myself how bad I was for having sex with people. Like, I never felt, could I get all these guys? Like, it was bad. Like, it was just terrible. Um, and then what happened that took me out of it was brutal. And this was the worst. This was a really, really difficult chapter for me to write, because I'll tell you this, Harry, here's what happened. I woke up one day. My routine was that I'd get up really early in the morning, at like 5 a.m. I'd go downstairs to the basement. I would check my computer, because it was back when you had like a, a family computer. There were no cell phones at this time. It was a long time ago. I'm old.
I remember the family computer, just about.
Okay. You had to dial it out like it was so I would check my email, and then I would go to the gym and be back before anyone was up. And so this one day I got up and I went down to the basement. Up comes 3 emails from 3 different wives of 3 men I had been with.
Oh shit.
Yeah. The same time, the same day, I get
the same day.
Same day, same morning.
That's like a collusion.
It was actually 2 wives and one of the guys, and the guy was like, the thing was the subject line was, she knows. And no, it was like, it was, I can't even tell you how awful it was. And that's when it kind of hit me that I'm not just hurting myself, I'm hurting other people. And that's that was something. To this day, I've forgiven myself for a lot. I have a very hard time with that. Like, I hate the idea that I hurt anybody. Like, I will never be okay with that. And I'm okay with not being okay with it, because it's I know that it's not, like, it wasn't my commitment, it wasn't my relationship. I know that, but and I get it. I get that I was.
You shouldn't hate yourself too much. I mean, it's not good. It's not a good thing to do, but you didn't kill anybody.
No,
it's not done.
No, that's it. And I get it. Yeah, I get why it's just shitty. So I decided that I can't, like, I'm done. And I won't get into it now, but if in my book I told my husband everything, and his reaction was awful. He didn't really care. But I said that we need to stop doing everything. Like, I'd see a therapist, and he was like, you need to stop, like, going to clubs, you need to, like, all of it. And my husband didn't really want to stop, but eventually
he didn't want to stop.
Said fine. To going to the swinging bar, like, he's like, well, we can just watch, but it was killing me. Like, it was killing me. So we stopped everything, and I ended up going into a recovery program for my eating disorder and getting healthy. And then I had been put on medication after because what I left out was about 3 years after I got out of the hospital, I had a problem with my liver, and I had to have liver surgery and have part of my liver removed. So do you
think you're a sex addict as well?
No, I'll tell you.
Tell me.
Okay. So I wondered if I was, and then I mean, I wasn't, because if you look at all I also thought I was bipolar, but I wasn't. But if you look for sex addict, there's things like I never like actually picked up a stranger. I wasn't. There were a whole bunch of things that I just didn't fit. Like, I didn't fit that mold. But and as soon as I decided to stop, I had no need to be with anyone else. Like, it wasn't something that continued. Like, when I decided to stop, I stopped.
Stop.
But what I did do, though, was I did call anonymous place once, without telling my husband, because I wondered. And this is the crazy thing. So I call up, and the guy was not happy to hear from me, because I don't think any women, like, there were no women. So I was asking questions, and he was like for a meeting, he's like, well, listen, if you come to a meeting, it's all men. So you'll be the only woman. You'll have, like he said, I would have to really dress down. I couldn't wear makeup.
And
I wasn't like just.
What were the men there for? Men that, like, cheat on their wives, or was sex?
No, it was just sex. It would be sex addicts. So I don't know. So he was prepared. Well, so this is the thing. So he's like, okay, you'll be the only woman. You can't wear makeup. You can't swear, I remember, was a thing. So my first thought was,
don't say fuck.
Like, no, my first thought was like, what a goddess I would be. Imagine walking into this room, and they're also like, I would get so much attention. But then right away I was like, no, I can't do that. Plus, you had to abstain from sex for a year, and I knew that wasn't going to go well in my marriage.
That's crazy.
Something like that. So anyway, I said I passed on that, but I didn't need it. And so so I got out of it. I went into recovery for my eating disorder. I had been put on very strong opiates for my for chronic pain for my surgeries. I was on OxyContin and then methadone for 6 years. And
Yeah.
I weaned, and I weaned myself off of everything.
You know how many
Like,
people they killed in America, those Oxycontins?
I know. I know
Hundreds
it
of
was
thousands.
getting off it is not getting off methadone is brutal. And but I did it, and my whole life changed. I became once I got started recovering from my eating disorder, I really became an advocate for body image and eating disorders. And I ended up being like at the time, Facebook was just starting. And so there weren't the groups now that are all about body positivity and things like that. So nobody wanted to talk about eating disorders because they're not glamorous, but I was talking. So I would see something on TV, a show about kids and food and diet, and I didn't like it, what they were saying, because I felt our society was obsessed with diet. And I would call up the station and they'd invite me on. Or I became the go-to in Toronto for talking about these things. And so I did a ton of media, and I ended up creating a program called Fit versus Fiction that I took. It was a workshop, an interactive workshop that I took to schools from grade 1 up, and wrote a book for parents called The Body Image Survival Guide for parents. And everything was like, and my kids were great. Everything was great. However, my marriage was still rocky. I started to feel like I'm a fraud, because I was terrified that somebody from my past was going to bring things up. I was terrified that I'd walk through the store and a guy would recognize me and say something in front of my kids. I was terrified that I'd be on the radio or on TV and somebody would call up and go, she's not such a good person. This is what she did. Like, I was so scared that I ended up kind of relapsing back into my eating disorder. I didn't feel like I could talk to people about self-esteem if I felt that mine was in the gutter. I started to feel really unloved and unworthy again in my marriage. And I talk about in my book how there was about a year or two when I would drive my kids. Now at this point, my kids were in high school, and I would drive my kids to school. And on the way back, I would see the same overpass every day and wonder what would happen if I turned my wheel just a little to the right, you know?
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. And I started to think maybe my kids would be better off with that. Like, I felt like I was wasting space and resources on the planet that I didn't deserve. And then I had this situation where I just dropped my kids off at school, and I'd gone to the grocery store, and I was literally going to just buy a bunch of binge food and just eat my face off until it was time to get them and just cry. And I went to the cash and ended up talking with the woman at the cash, and she said something, you know, she's having a bad day or she's tired. And I said, me too. And she said something like, you're such a light, like a bright light. And I'm like, what? Huh? What do you? And I was like, had to keep reminding myself to breathe while I was grocery shopping because I was such a mess. But she was like, yeah, you're like luminescent. And I was like, who is she talking? Like, I could not, it really messed me up because I'm like, who is she seeing? And I remember I got home that day and I had the worst headache and I was blaring music while I was putting away my groceries and crying. And I thought, she saw something in me. Like, there must be something there still, you know? And that's when I thought, okay, this is it. I'm done with this. I'm going to fight back. This isn't how my story ends. Mm-hmm. And I made the decision then to get out of it. Now, I didn't leave my marriage right away. I don't remember how long it took, but things started to change and I knew that I was going to. And it was only about 6 years ago that I left my marriage. And when I did that, you know, everything changed. It was scary, but I did. And I continue to be a body image advocate. And now with my book out, I've started to help people, coach people in other ways to get through shame and guilt. Because it was only when I decided to forgive myself. Like, my book is dedicated to anyone struggling to forgive themselves for the mistakes they made when they were just trying to survive. Because it was only when I looked at my past and I understood why I did the things that I did, and I was able to forgive myself for that I could leave that behind me and move forward and let myself, I didn't think I deserved to be happy. Now I do, you know? And so that I had to believe that though. And that's when, even when I wrote my book, I decided that I had more years behind me than ahead of me. And I'll be damned if I wasn't going to live it as authentically as I possibly could. And I felt like I couldn't do that because I was always I was afraid of being fully me, because I was afraid of my past coming out. And then I decided, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to put it all out there, and whoever hates me will hate me, and whoever loves me will love me. And I was
Well,
prepared for whatever
yeah,
it was going to be.
I think like now, having heard most of your story, I'd be very surprised if anyone can hate you for doing what you did after what you've been through. I'd be extremely surprised. And I wasn't judging you at all before, because I don't judge people like that. You be a stripper, anything like that, I don't care. I think it's your choice, it's your body, and I kind of respect it as a job anyway. I think it's cool. But yeah, it's a brilliant example of how not to judge people. And hey, you don't know what they've been through. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's very inspiring what you have been through, and you survived. You're still living now. You've got a good life. You're happy now, right?
I'm happy. I think I change on. I'm constantly evolving. I think that the thing is that what I realized, the biggest change for me when the book was published, it's one thing, like writing it was cathartic and all of that. But what I found was I was afraid that people would judge me and all of that. What I found instead is that it's not the pretty stuff that connects us as much as it is the dark stuff and the stuff that we're not.
Strong.
And because I told my story, when you go through stuff, sometimes you feel like you're the only person, and you feel like you feel very alone. But when you like, so people, no, not everybody's experienced everything that I've experienced, but everyone's been through either losses or body image stuff or sexual stuff or relationship stuff. So there were different things for people that resonated with them. And when they would message me and say, I don't feel so alone anymore, then that was that was so empowering for me, like, wow. So now, now I feel like I can say anything, I can do anything, I can try anything, because the scary stuff is out there. And the hardest part was surviving it. That's what I realized too. I stopped being afraid of being judged on how I survived. I'm just proud that I survived. So if somebody wants to judge me on how I did that, that's on them. That's not going to hurt me.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can like. How can people judge you for like they haven't gone through a half or a quarter of all the crazy shit and terrible things that happened to you? So yeah, the fact you're even here is a miracle, and it's a blessing. And I think it sounds like you did fine to me. You didn't really break any rules in my book.
No.
You
Thank
had
you.
some weird experimental years, but hey, that's cool, you know? All right.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, but if you want to let people know that, can I let people know where to get my book?
Yes, yes,
For the
please do.
title of it.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
book is called
Plug away.
the Good Stripper: A Soccer Mom's Memoir of Lies, Loss, and Lap Dances, and you can order it off of Amazon.
All right, people, you heard where to get it. Go buy the books, you fucks. All right, thank you, Marcie.
Thanks, Harry.